Um, so I've done a lot of these workshops. I'm going to take my shoes off because that's what you do in Bali, and I take my shoes off at with every excuse. Um, I've done a lot of these workshops. I've never done one for a group that includes different hearing abilities and different vision abilities. So I've tried to include some oral stuff and some visual stuff that hopefully drives home some of the same points about what the things that I've learned from and the things that I love about Balinese culture. So the first thing I want to ask everybody is how many of you here are the firstborn sibling in your family?
Oldest.
Oldest. Okay. So in Bali, most families, there's some different variations to the rule. But generally speaking, most families in Bali, they give the firstborn kid the same name. And it's a unisex name. So it's Wayan. So all of you that are firstborn, you would be a Wayan. Okay? How many of you are secondborn? So you would be Made.
I'm not gonna get to your numbers.
Made. Made. It looks like maid, M-A-D-E.
Oh,
Made. Yeah. How many of you are thirdborn? I'm a thirdborn. Okay, so we're Nyoman. Okay, Nyoman. And how many of you are fourth? So you would be Ketut. Okay, Ketut. How many of you are fifthborn? Fifth. So here's the trick.
She's a middle child.
And they lose track of us. So if you're a fifthborn, the names just start over. Wayan. So you would be Wayan. Basically, it would be like Wayan again, or you would be Wayan Alit, little Wayan, and your oldest sibling would be Wayan Gede. Okay, big Wayan. And so then if you're sixth born, you would be a Made, but there would be an older one and a younger one. And a seventh born would be another Nyoman, and an eighth born would be another Ketut.
What about 12?
You just start them over
Oh,
again.
there you go.
I don't know that I've ever encountered one. So I think you would be a Ketut, but maybe they would call you Ketut Tiga, like Ketut number 3, maybe Ketut Tiga, maybe. But the naming practices in Bali are a little bit of an insight into how Balinese culture thinks about every individual's connection to their family and to their community.
What a public school nightmare, though.
Oh, yeah. Well, one of my teachers, his name is Nyoman, but he's actually second born because his brother, he was a Made and his brother's a Nyoman. And when they got into junior high, that was the first time that his name appeared on an official document, and they messed it up. And so he's Nyoman.
I have a question.
Yes.
So that's their name?
Mhm.
They don't have like a name like Alex,
Sometimes they'll have like a nickname.
but their name.
But their name, yeah,
They all have the same name.
a bunch of them. Yeah,
It's about where you are in the family versus like an individual.
yeah. Which isn't to say that the sense of individual self doesn't exist. It's different. And later on, I'll tell you a story that kind of drives that home. Okay, so but the main thing, the first thing that fascinated me when I first got into Balinese music and culture, and dance and all of the elements that are all tied into that, is this sense of cooperation and community, and how one person's connection to another person and to the group is just different and really complex, and in a lot of ways really, really beautiful. And I'm a musician, and so that initially appealed to me in how the music works, and we're going to do some of that. So a lot of what we're going to do is sonic, but I've tried to bring a couple of visual representations of that so that we can at least see how some of that interactivity works. Now, the first example that I brought do we have any textile nerds in here? Yeah.
That's why I know I do quilting, so a lot of people love to go to Bali and make batiks.
Yeah.
I wish
Um,
someday.
So the batik is one of the textile practices in Indonesia. They do beautiful batik in Bali. This is, and you could, the village where they make this, they also do beautiful batik. This is a kind of weaving practice, though, that I discovered. I didn't discover it. When I first found it, I just blew my mind that this is how it works. So this little lady here, she's my dealer. And every time I go to Bali, like the first few times I went to her shop, I realized, okay, I got to go to this village at the very end of my trip so I can honestly, sincerely say, I only have this much money left. And after the third or fourth time I went there, I told her that, and she laughed and laughed and laughed and pulled out her credit card reader. And she looks cute and sweet, but she is ruthless. She has made me spend so much money that I didn't have. Now that's her daughter, who I think now does most of the weaving in the family. And you can kind of see a piece sort of like this in process on the loom there. This is a type of weaving called geringsing, and globally it's called double ikat. And there are only 3 places in the world that have figured out this weaving method. There's one little village in Bali, and then there's a place in Okinawa, and then there's a place somewhere in India that independently have arrived at this practice. Now, the way they do this is they dye the thread, and they use all natural materials for the dye. And it's a very meticulous process for dyeing the thread. But the thing that blows my mind is that they dye the pattern that's going to be in the cloth into the thread before they weave the thread.
Wow.
Yeah. It's like, okay, I'm going to write a novel. I'm going to write the first line of every page, and then I'm going to write the second line of every page. And somehow it turns out into this beautiful pattern. And it involves masking the bundles of string so that these patterns are embedded in the dye, and then they unmask certain parts of it. So like the brown is the darkest dye. The brown dye goes on top of the red, and the red dye goes on top of the beige, and the beige goes on top of the white. So they mask and unmask different layers to dye different colors into the pattern. And it makes these incredible geometric shapes. This one, the middle circle here, represents the village of Tenganan, and then these around the outside, those are scorpions. So they're supposed to be protecting the walls around the village. And this idea that you could imagine something this complex and beautiful while you're dealing with these individual threads. And the reason they call it double ikat is because they dye the pattern into the threads going both directions. Oh. Yeah, what is it? The weave and the weft and the weft and weave, is that what it is? So that's why it's double ikat. So the idea that one strand of this, if it has certain features and if it has a certain pattern to it, could be incorporated into something this complex and make something this complex is part of what just blows my mind about Balinese culture. And you kind of see this intense cooperation and connectivity all over in Balinese culture and society. There's a couple of books actually by a guy named Stephen Lansing, and he's an anthropologist, sociologist who he kind of pioneered this whole sort of new discipline of research called complexity studies. And it's about how you try to make sense of how you make predictions based on really, really complex systems that are so complex that they look like chaos if you just see it at work. But the way he started, the reason he first got into this idea of complexity studies is he was looking at how Balinese rice farmers irrigate their rice paddies. So if you read only one book about Southeast Asian wet rice irrigation this year, make it Stephen Lansing's Perfect Order. Or there's another one, actually, Priests and Programmers. It's mind-blowing because you see this kind of complexity that goes into this weaving into how the farmers coordinate who waters their field when. Because they have a bunch of rice paddies, and every rice paddy has to be flooded for a certain number of days and empty for a certain number of days, and then the rice has to grow for a certain number of days. And so they time it. It's sort of like the dye in the thread. They time it so that when it's time for one farmer to let the water out of his rice paddy, that coordinates with when it's time for somebody downhill from him to flood their rice paddy. And they do this in this huge coordinated effort called a suba. It's like there are a couple of UNESCO World Heritage sites that you can. That's your excuse. You're doing UNESCO World Heritage research when you go to Bali. And the same thing happens in the dance and in the music. So let's talk about the music a little bit. And then we're going to do some of the music and a little bit of dance movement. I'm not a dancer, I'm a musician, but they make you kind of do both. They don't draw a very clear distinction between those in Bali. So in Balinese music, they have something called kotekan. And I just have a little simulation of it here on my laptop. And that's that other picture. You can kind of see a visual representation of it on the screen. So in this little loop that I'm going to play, let me see. Let's do this. And I'll just hold the microphone up to the speaker. The audio won't be great, but the software that I use on my laptop does not play nice with Zoom at all. Otherwise, I would just put it on the screen. But the audio compression on Zoom, it'll bring down the power grid or something. So here we have just a steady beat. This is electronic, simulation of the instruments you would hear in Bali.
That's the bottom line, right?
Yep.
That's the bottom beat.
Yep. So, so the lines just represent the sound. Bop, 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 bop. Okay. And then you add some gongs. I'll add the gongs in. Then you add the lowest instrument in.
Getting the vibe of like they need more cowbell.
Yeah, there's one guy and his job is the more cowbell.
Whoa.
Now we're adding more layers in as we go up. So I'm just going up what you see on the screen. I just added the jublog. So you can see those 4 lines. Dun, 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 dun. Now I'm going to add the Penya Cha here. Okay, now here's where it starts to get really crazy. Because in the upper instruments, they're going to play and they're going to add another layer of ornamentation. Everything in Balinese culture is about ornamenting stuff. You get a structure and then you ornament it, the structure, and then you ornament the ornamentation of the structure, and then you ornament the ornaments. And that is why literally when you go to a Balinese like temple where there's a ceremony going on, they have sculptures by the gate to decorate the gate, and then they dress up the sculptures. They decorate the decorations. Okay, so orally, what that means, I'm going to add in the polos part. It's the part that's kind of more on the beat. So these players are playing these bronze xylophones, and they're playing mostly on the beat. And it sounds like this when I add in this polos part.
When you were an undergrad, did you go Bali music? That is my dream.
It was a rabbit hole that I fell down in grad school.
Okay.
It was a Balinese teacher. And he said, "Why don't you come play in our group?" And I said, "Because I watch my kids on Saturdays." And he said, "Bring your kids. We don't get babysitters in Bali." So I did. And that's the only way I could do it. Yeah. Okay. So here's the other part. There's another group of bronze xylophone players called the Songsi, and they're playing on the offbeats. So they're playing like this. In between the beats. Sounds like this. It sounds like R2D2, sort of. Yeah, but here's what it sounds like. Here's what it sounds like when you put those two parts together.
Yes.
Okay, now I wish I could, all the instruments are heavy.
Oh my God.
When I was an undergrad, I was a percussionist, and I was like, I'm going to go into musicology because I can carry library books, but I'm tired of hauling gear to gigs. And then I got into Balinese music, and there's just more gear, and it's heavier gear, and it doesn't fold up and fit in my trunk like my old gear did. But it's really, really fun. So what you would hear, the reason that these players have to play like that is because every time they hit a note, as soon as they go to the next note, they have to pinch the first note. Otherwise, it's just too muddy. So they're playing with one hand and then they're unplaying with the other hand. And so when they unplay a note, that's when the other player plays their next note. It's sort of like when one farmer floods his rice paddy and the other farmer drains his rice paddy. Okay? So we're going to try a little bit of this with a type of Balinese music called kachak. And we don't have to play any instruments. We do have to be sort of noisy and loud.
Time? Okay.
We good? What time frame are we looking at, by the way?
Probably 15.
15 more minutes? Okay, perfect. All right. So here's what we're going to do. Normally, we would have one guy, and his job literally would be to be the more cowbell guy. And all day, all night, the whole performance, he'd go, boom, 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 boom. That would be his job. There's a guy in our group. He's a linguist. He's a faculty member at BYU, and he plays in our group. And his name is Dirk, and he often plays that. So we go, Dirk, 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 Dirk. And I think it's hilarious, and he doesn't think it's that funny. No. I'm not going to make any of you do that for 15 minutes. We're just going to keep the beat on our knees, okay?
You want to play for 15 minutes?
We're going to make noise for 15 minutes. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
It's a long time to make noise.
No, well, it'll go by so fast. It'll go by so fast. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. Now, one of the sounds that we have to make is we have to imitate the big gong. The big gong is the most important instrument in the whole ensemble. And the way we imitate the gong is we go like this. Okay? Everybody try that with me. And the reason we go is because the gong, when they tune the gong, they tune it so it has a nice clear tone. Boom. But then they deliberately knock it out of tune a little bit so that it's a little bit out of tune with itself and has kind of an interference pattern. It's sort of like when you have two trumpet players that are just a little bit out of tune with each other, and it goes wah, 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 wah. And we, like band teachers, want to get rid of that. In Balinese music, we like that. Okay, so the gong goes wah, 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 because it's a little bit out of tune with itself, and you knock it out of tune with itself the number of hertz or vibrations per second that you want the speed of the wah wah to be. Okay, so and the tuners are really, really good at this thing. So that's why we go. Everybody do that with me again. Good. Okay, and now we're going to imitate a high gong too, and it just goes bong, bong. Yeah, so we're going to alternate. Should I hold the mic? Oh, when I go that means stop. Good. Okay. Okay. Now we're going to do, the reason this is called kachak is because it doesn't use any of the beautiful instruments that they use in Balinese ensembles. It just uses our voices, and the main sound that we make it goes like this. Everybody do that with me. Yeah, and you got to use your diaphragm. You don't aspirate the K at the end. It's spelled C-A-K. But if you go chak, then your voice will be shot in 10 minutes. A glottal. So we do a glottal. All right, do that with me. Shut. Again. Shut. Good. Okay, now here's what we're going to do. Let's divide it halfway for starters. Okay, so this side of the room, we're going to go like this. We're going to keep a beat with our hand. We're going to go. Good. Keep going. Loud. Okay, this side. Here we go. Keep it up, get up. Here we go. That was good. That was good. That was good. It was really good.
Like really
Now, the point of this is to fill in all of the divisions of the beat. Okay. Now, if we wanted to do that, an easy way would just have some guy go, but that's not very fun. So instead, we take all of the divisions of the beat and we give them out to different people. And normally we wouldn't divide it half and half like this. We would all be spread out doing different parts, and we would have more than 2 parts going too. We'd have probably 5 or 6 or 10 different rhythms going. But the whole point is that when you get all of the rhythms going, it fills in all of the beats and it fills in all of the space, right? So instead of just cha 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 cha, it's cha 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 cha. So it spatializes the sound rather than just filling up the time. Okay, let's try that one more time. Should we switch the parts? Let's switch the parts.
Sure.
Okay, over here we're gonna go. So it's time to move on, isn't that right? This is also how Balinese teachers do it too. Like, as soon as you get it and you want to just settle in, they're like, okay, well, you got it. Let's go on. They're kind of ruthless, but they're also super friendly. So they're so mean, but they're so smiley while they're mean to you. I love them. Okay, here we go. So this side we're gonna go cha 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 That was good. That was good. Good. All right. See, you guys got it. You got it. That was awesome. Also, the other thing that is really fun about Balinese music is that there's a really blurry line between rehearsal and performance. Because most of the performances are for like ceremonial purposes. If you're doing anything on the Balinese like ceremonial calendar, which is very, very complex, then you have to have music and dance there, and you have to decorate everything, and it's just complicated. And so there's always somebody that doesn't know what they're doing and faking it, like always. That's how you get more people. And the line between faking it and not faking it is very blurry. So like every time you see a performance of like a traditional performance in a village, there'll be like 20 people that are just knocking it out. They are so good. And then like 5 people that are just like hanging on. And it's awesome. And they're like part of it. When we took students there this past summer, we were at this performance in as part of a temple ceremony for Balinese Hindu temple ceremony. And we had a bunch of BYU students there. And we'd only been in Bali like 3 or 4 days. So there were only a couple of us that actually knew how to play any pieces. But there were some flutes sitting there that weren't being used. And so as the group was playing, a friend of mine was here, and one of the students said, "How do you play those flutes?" And I said, "Do you want to learn?" And a friend of mine that was from that village, I said, "Hey, Pop, do you want to teach them how to play flute?" He's like, "Oh, sure." He passes out these flutes. The gamelan's playing. The ceremony's going on. And like for the next, I don't know, 45 minutes, these 7 students got a flute lesson on the piece that was being performed, just like in the middle of it. That's just how it works. Because in the Balinese aesthetic is you want everybody to be involved and you want it to be beautiful no matter what you're doing. So just if there's a flute there, then somebody should play that flute. If there's a pole over there that you could wrap a ribbon around, well, somebody go wrap a ribbon around that pole, just to make things more beautiful. And it's really, I think, really inspiring. Okay, how much time do we have left?
10.
10 minutes? Okay. Let me show you a couple of other parts of a Kachak performance. So one of the things that you would do if you're doing a Kachak performance, this is an art form that's only invented about 100 years ago. It draws on some really old artistic practices and ritual practices, but this Kachak was actually invented kind of in response to tourism. It was as soon as the Dutch realized there was sort of a Boston Tea Party situation, except with rice, and the Dutch realized that Bali, the Dutch had colonized the whole region, and they realized that that cultural tourism was probably a better way to go with this culturally vibrant place than just, exporting rice. And so steamship tours start going through Southeast Asia, and travel agencies start advertising Bali as a cultural tourism destination. And Kachak was kind of invented to perform for tourists. So it doesn't have the same sort of like ceremonial or ritual, what's the word? Like it's more of a sandbox because it doesn't have all of the ceremonial obligations that other types of performances do. And so they have fun with it. They mess around with it and they kind of experiment with it. The standard way to do Kachak is we would be here in a circle doing the chanting part, but we would also be kind of doing the scenery. So part of the story takes place in a forest. We're waving our hands because we're the trees. And if they get to the water, then here's the breeze across the water. And if there's a battle, then there's the chaos of battle. There's one part where someone is imprisoned, and so we lock our arms around the person who's in the middle and they're
Going on bear hunt.
prison.
Oh.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Total. So we're providing the background music, and we're like the extras, and the chorus, and the scenery, and the dancers all at once. And usually the main story that happens in the middle of these circles is the Ramayana, like the Hindu epic story. It's a kidnapping and rescue story. Okay. So Rama and Sita get kidnapped, or Rama, the prince, and his wife Sita are in the forest. Sita gets kidnapped by this evil king who sends his henchman to pretend to be he turns himself into a deer who's really cute. And she's like, oh, let's go get that deer. And it's not a deer, it's a bad guy. And so she gets kidnapped, and then Rama has to go rescue her. And part of the rescue is that he enlists an army of monkeys. So sometimes we're all monkeys too. So depending on the story, there could be a lot going on. Some of the versions involve like fire walking in the middle. I asked Adam, and he was kind of a party pooper about it. He's like, I
Worried
know.
about the building.
Yeah,
Fire alarm going on.
always. Sometimes the battle scene gets pretty involved. Like sometimes we're like throwing embers at each other and flaming torches, and sometimes there's a little like WWE kind of fighting in the middle. We don't do any of that. But whatever happens, we kind of create the space for it to happen in. So that's what this company does. Okay. And the way that we prepare the space for it and like synchronize our minds as a group is that we do a few things when we first start the performance. We come in and we're doing the chanting and some dancing, and then we sit down in a circle, and then I'm going to take you through some of the stuff that we would do just to start the whole thing. Okay. So the first thing I would do is the leader gives a little monkey hiss like this, and everybody kind of shuffles on their bottom. And that's just to get the circle round. And if there are multiple circles, to get all of the spokes of the wheel lined up. And then there's another hiss, and everybody puts their hands up like this. And a priest goes around, and this isn't a ceremonial, this isn't a ritual, but they still do prayers at the beginning of every performance. So a Balinese priest goes around and sprinkles holy water. And then the priest does a prayer. So everybody puts their hands up like this. And then there's another hiss. You bring your hands down like this. And then I'm going to hiss 3 times, and we're just going to exhale and roll our torso forward. Okay. And it should feel really like cathartic. Okay. The air that down here that hasn't circulated for a while. Okay. So exhale and then roll it back up, and we'll do that 3 times. Now we're going to do an om, and it's the syllable, the meditation syllable. Okay. And you don't pitch match. You just find it. You should feel this one in your guts. That's what the pitch is for. That is for the what is it? The biofeedback of the rumbling in your gut. So you find a pitch that's as low as comfortable in your range, and you just hum that for about a breath. Okay. Good. So I did this once at BYU, and I said, now don't pitch match. It's not supposed to be pretty. Just feel it in your guts. And I gave him the cue, and then this BYU class did this perfect major triad. And I was like, that was the most BYU thing he possibly could have done. Okay, now this is my favorite part. In Balinese culture, there are good forces and bad forces, or productive forces and destructive forces, and you kind of got to give recognition to both. So at the beginning of this performance, we're going to imitate. It's called a butukala, and it's like a gargoyle. So it's like a creepy demon guy, but it's a good guy. It's our creepy demon guy. Okay. And we do it to scare away the bad guys. Okay. And this is the way we do it. So we're going to bring our hands down like this, like you lost your keys at the beach. Okay. And you make a low, rumbly, growly, trolly sound. Okay. Let's just hear that. Good. And then you bring your hands up, and as you bring your hands up, the pitch goes up. And then a hiss, and you bring your hands down. Okay? Got it? Let's try that 3 times.
Okay, one more. You got this.
Good. I'm going to tell you one story before we do the third one. I was doing this once in a GE class, and we did that twice. And then I was about to start the third one, and a student said, "Does this island really exist?" Like I had just made up 2 weeks of material and weaved this myself. Okay, third one. Here we go. Very good. Okay. Last thing, and then we're out of time, right?
Yep.
We're out of time.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna hiss, you're gonna lean to the right, put your left hand on your left hip, right hand across to the knee, and shrug your shoulders and say, "Heist! Heist!" And then switch it over here and say, "Heist! Heist!" Now bring it up here and go, "You! You!" Now bring it down to your knees and go, "Sudden," which is the gong, right? So the bong, the bong. Okay, let's try it. So heist, heist, you, sudden. Here we go. Heist, heist, you, sudden. Very good. You filled that hand. That was really good.
You had this recorded.
The ice heist, you see them? I saw some videos. Okay.
I'm not recording it, I'm taking photos. I did not record you.
Let's do the heist, heist, butte seal one more time. We're going. Heist, heist, butte seal. Yeah, that's how it goes. Good. Okay, now let me tell you, just to finish up. So this is, the way this works, it's a community thing. The towns that put on Kachak performances, that's how they make some money off of the tourism industry that's huge in Bali. So that doesn't all go to like whoever organizes the yoga retreat, or I mean, nothing against yoga retreats. I'm just saying. So this is the way that a village, like this is their communal activity to fund like the community center that's like the lifeblood of their neighborhood and their town. And that's how all of Bali works. And every village has a group like this that does Kachak or that does gamelan with the instruments, that provides all of the performances that they need, for tourists to make some money, but also for all of the ceremonies at the temple and all of the, what do you call it? Life milestone ceremonies, like when a baby's born and when someone dies and when you get married, all of those require music and dance. And so the community is what provides that. And the bonds in the community are the thing that I find so inspiring every time I go to Bali. And I was to close, I'll just tell you this little story. I was asking one of my teachers, I said, okay, so, because when I first started going to Bali, I would notice bonkers things and I'd be like, oh, they just didn't realize that there's an easier way to do this. Let me, as as the presumptuous white dude from America. Let me tell you an easier way to do this. And I said, okay, so I said to my teacher, okay, the name thing, doesn't that get complicated? And he's like, oh, what do you mean? And I said that everybody, or like a lot of people have the same name. And he's like, no, well, it doesn't matter. And I said, okay, let's say you go to like a big festival. Let's go to the Bali Arts Festival, 10,000 people there, and you're there with your friend Neoman, and you get separated in the crowd, and you see him across the way, and you yell, hey, Neoman, and like 25% of the people in the crowd turn around because their name's Neoman. And I said, so what, isn't that complicated? And he said, well, why did you guys get separated? And I said, it doesn't matter. It's just like, this is a hypothetical situation. And he's like, did you get in a fight? I'm like, it doesn't matter. And he's like, it kind of does matter. And that's when I realized, and then as I looked, I was like, when Balinese people go to stuff, they're just like, they hold hands sometimes. It's really sweet. Like old men, if they're going to something, they hold hands. They're cute. And because they're just, they're connected. They feel so connected to the people around them that like that situation apparently never comes up. So that's the lesson that I take away from Bali, and that's why I love this stuff and the music, and I love talking about it. So thanks for having me, you guys.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you. If you wanted to go see your gamelan,
Yes.
which is where you see these big heavy metal, they really are heavy metal, and they're like banging them with a hammer, and they're doing the clothes as well. So they are playing like doing.
Yeah.
How do we see that?
So we have a concert at BYU. The concert, if you go on like BYUarts.com, the concert is called Global Rhythm. Yeah, Global Rhythm. Our concert this semester, I think, is on November 1st. Okay. But you could also, every Friday we rehearse from 4 to 7. And our group is a combination of registered students and community members. So it's about half and half at any given point. About half registered BYU students taking it for credit, and half randos. We don't know where they came from. They just like lingered by the door too long and made eye contact with someone. And now they've been in the group for 7 years. So no, it's some BYU community members and alums and some UVU students that just like it and heard about it. So they showed up. They're not doing it for credit. They're just doing it for fun. And some other folks that I don't know where they came from, but they play in the group. So any of you are welcome to come. It's every Friday from 4 to 7 in the music building at BYU.
So if I gave them your email,
Yep.
they could email you and get some information on that.
Yep, absolutely.
It's amazing. I got to go and see them. I helped tune an instrument
Yeah.
once, and it was just tying knots. I was like, that's cool. I could do that.
Well, because you have to, we were trying to string up the bars and repair some instruments. And I was like, if I knew a sailor, I bet I could do better knots to keep these bars strung. And I was like, wait a second, I do know a sailor. And so then Adam came and showed us some better knots.
Oh, that's fun.
He's got some, it's pretty crazy what they do. And I think really his profession would keep us in business if we worked with adults with hearing loss. I don't know.
Because I'm losing it. I'm bad.
You wear,
We do use earplugs,
yeah.
but I started using earplugs probably about 15 years too late. So I'm starting to lose.
So, but really, it is quite remarkable if you ever have a chance, and I'll share your information with
Yeah.
you. But if you can, go check it out.
I teach the ensemble, the Balinese ensemble, and then I teach world music classes mostly. I was in administration until this past July. So that was all I was teaching, and then I was just doing administrative stuff. But I was released. I'm on parole from administrative duty now.
That's good. That's good. And once in a lifetime opportunity to see. And I think your instructor came when I went to the concert.
Oh yeah,
And
from Bali.
Yeah, from Bali. And now they had a dancer, and they did all of those things, the kachuk, and they worked up, and you watched them do this preparation ceremony before the concert started, and then it just started, and you're like, whoa, this is really cool. It all happened. So yeah, very, very cool
It's fun.
Thank you.
Still trying to figure out how it's a job. I don't know.
Yeah, right. Right. So some of the things, the reason we asked him to come was the unity of the community and the group
sorry.
building, team building, right? In Bali, the community is everything to them. And what he was describing with the musicians not having to be perfect at it, it's something that if there's a flute there, we want them to play it because we want it to be the most beautiful, and why not, right? And I feel sometimes that goes along with us and what we do. We have resources. We want to use them. We want to help people use them to make the best situation possible that we can, as long as we can.
The whole thing in Bali is that more people doing their best is always better than a few people doing it perfectly.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Good community. Thanks, Jeremy.